Okay. Hopefully everybody is now here with us, able to see our speakers. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining our event this morning, Unlocking the Full Potential of Catalytic Philanthropy, Capital for the SDGs, co-hosted by the SDG Philanthropy Platform, the Russian Donors Forum, WINGS, and UNDP. And thank you to all of our esteemed speakers for joining us today. Just a few quick housekeeping rules before I hand over to our moderator. One moment. Okay. So you all know this session is being recorded and will be made available to participants in our network after the event. We do have a Q&A box, but we will not be having a Q&A session. So if you have a pressing question, please share it in the box and we will respond in writing. And you can follow us on Twitter at UNDP, at WINGSinfo, at PhilSDGs, and of course, check out all of the websites of our colleagues on the call today. With that, I will hand over to our moderator, Benjamin Belagy, Executive Director of WINGS. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Lauren. It's a really great pleasure to welcome all of you from all over the world for this important discussion. So today we're here to lift up the role of philanthropy in achieving the SDGs by relaunching the SDG Philanthropy Platform, which is a partnership between UNDP and WINGS, and discussing the findings of the new report by the Russian Donors Forum on philanthropy and social investments in BRICS countries before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the SDG Philanthropy Platform is just starting an exciting next evolution. We will work in collaboration with governments and other partners to facilitate an enabling environment, including policy environment for effective action by philanthropy. The platform will pursue new innovative approaches, including a pooled fund and innovation call for local philanthropy support organizations to strengthen their ability to create bridges for multi-stakeholder collaboration. And we will work to create a brand new financial instrument guide for philanthropy to aid in the understanding of the range of tools to unlock catalytic philanthropy. The platform will work with the SDG Innovation Labs to create a pipeline of philanthropic investments ready ideas, establish a global expert advisory committee, and we will tell the story of philanthropy's contribution to the global goals and raise awareness on how much more can be achieved and gained through unlocking an additional $100 billion for the SDGs. So today we will hear from those that are directly involved in unlocking catalytic philanthropy at the global, regional, and local levels as to how, by working in collaborative partnerships, the philanthropy sector can unlock development finance. So to get us started, I would like to invite Mirjana Spolarik-Egger, Director of the Regional Bureau for Europe and the CIS and Assistant Administrator of the UNDP, to make some opening remarks. Mirjana, the floor is yours, and I think you might need to unmute. There must be a little icon to unmute your microphone at the bottom of your screen. I don't know if on our side we can unmute.
Can you? It works.
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Benjamin. Good morning, Dimitri. And good morning to all from New York. It's a great pleasure to be here and to join this important event together with SDG Philanthropy Platform, WINGS, and the Russian Donors Forum, amongst others. We are living today through profound global upheaval. This is not only due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but for a number of converging trends and compounding challenges, the global context for development cooperation has fundamentally changed over the past few years. Many countries are today confronted with external shocks coming at a time of severe inequalities, ecological fragility, and the growing distrust within and amongst our societies and institutions. These situations have nevertheless not in the least changed the validity of the Agenda 2030 as our main reference framework for achieving sustainable development. UNDP is present in almost every country in the world, and together with our partners within the UN family and beyond, we are tirelessly working with communities as much as with central governments to drive forward a range of critical responses that are now needed. Now, according to the current OECD Global Outlook, annual SDG financing needs have increased to 4.2 trillion for developing countries to keep on track for achieving the 2030 goals. However, we are meeting today because the challenge is not only about the quantum of resources available for developing countries, but also about the way in which resources are being prioritized. With its new strategic plan, UNDP recommits to aligning global wealth with SDGs as well as the Paris Agreement. And philanthropy plays an increasingly prominent role in supporting the International Sustainable Development Agenda. It includes pushing unexpected changes and reaching spaces that neither the government nor existing markets can or want to occupy. Philanthropy is also about enticing and empowering citizens to engage in social issues. Now, institutional philanthropy has already contributed 260 billion to SDGs since their inception. And the Charities Aid Foundation estimates that if the world's middle income or middle classes were to give over just 0.5% of their spending, this could amount to 319 billion in resources annually. Now, UNDP in collaboration with WINGS and through the SDG Philanthropy platform seeks to promote philanthropy as a partner of choice vis-à-vis national governments and the private sector. And as Benjamin has just said, we are today celebrating the launch of the SDG Philanthropy Platform 2.0, building on 6 years of joint work today. In this next evolution, the platform will support all types of philanthropic actors, from individual to institutional, at the local and at the global levels. The platform has helped secure a seat at the table for philanthropy to become an equal development partner and contribute to national policymaking in the focus countries. For example, in Kenya, the platform has institutionalized strong multi-stakeholder governance and coordination structures to convene and connect partners. And it has established a multi-trust fund that is pooling financing for development from philanthropy, private sector, governments, and IFIs. Now, today's meeting will also focus on the increasingly important role of philanthropy and social investments from BRICS in embracing the SDGs. Our research shows that BRICS philanthropies have been instrumental in mitigating the consequences of COVID-19 by complementing the government responses. They have also shown the way in embracing the SDGs framework through working with private companies as well as individuals. Such collaboration has great potential, drawing on philanthropy's unique ability to support market-based solutions for sustainable development. It can create space for entrepreneurship and catalyze the growth of small and medium enterprises, especially in situations where job creation constitutes an urgent priority. Now, before closing my opening remarks, I want to restate again that development is no longer about a one-way transfer of funds or expertise. The modern way of development cooperation has to be based on equal partnerships, shared interests, and combined knowledge. Collaboration amongst governments, philanthropy, business, and civil society are crucial in building back more equal societies, inclusive economies, and a healthier planet. One example I just want to mention of such multi-stakeholder collaboration, and also because Dimitri is joining us today, allow me to refer to the Climate Box, which we launched a few years ago by UNDP in Russia, and with an initial contribution from the Coca-Cola company. The Climate Box is an interactive learning toolkit and an integrated climate education program that raises climate change awareness and encourages school students to lead environmentally friendly lives. UNDP will, based on its new 4-year strategic plan, as I said, and as part of its integrator role, remain committed to systematically promote multi-stakeholder collaboration across all sectors in order to advance the implementation of the Agenda 2030, as well as the Paris Agreement. And we invite today everyone to join our mission, utilize our joint partner platforms, work with our partners, and to help us achieve the goals. Thank you very much, Benjamin.
Thank you so much, Mirjana, for these insightful remarks. And I would like now to invite His Excellency Mr. Dmitry Shumakov, the Deputy Permanent Representative of the Russian Federation to the United Nations, to also provide us with some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. This is a great honor to participate in this event. We basically are happy to see impressive panel comprised of the representatives of corporations and philanthropic organizations from BRICS countries. I wish everyone a successful and productive meeting, and would like to start with saying that philanthropy and voluntary donations, they have always been crucial for survival and for development of nations. And now in the decade of action, I totally support what Mirjana has just said, that the pandemic is still ongoing, but not only the pandemic is the challenge. So importance of raising funds, including philanthropic funds, has become evident as never before. I would like to take this opportunity to to show examples of philanthropy in my country, back in the history and in our days. And in the history, you know, I would like to start with our Tsar family, the Romanov family. It was a big culture that we have different Tsars, you know. Some of them were more kind, some of them less. And I would like just to refer to Alexander III, because he was quite active in, besides all his regular activities, he was quite active in supporting the hospitals, and also his spouse Maria Fedorovna supported 17 shelters for sick people and orphans. And their daughter-in-law, Alexandra Fedorovna, and her own family supported various medical assistance programs for the people injured in the First World War. Also, another big example, maybe not that well-known fact about our famous person, Rasputin. There's a lot of myths about his life, but he was very active in building living houses for fabric workers, for plant workers in our country. It's talking about SDG, decent jobs. SDG, he was trying to invest in this decent job, but because the living conditions of those who worked in different fabrics was a big challenge at that time. So he personally also dedicated a lot of money. But getting back to our times, nowadays philanthropy continues to play an important role in the development of Russia. The concept of developing volunteerism aims at involving 20% of the population in volunteering activities, and UNDP is also, we're happy to be a part of UNDP programs of volunteerism, of UN volunteer program. I think this is just an excellent arm of development work. And we would like to say that business and enterprises, they're becoming active contributors to the achievement of SDGs, catalyst of private investments of their clients. For example, Aeroflot Russian Airlines runs a program through which the passengers can donate their miles to the 5 charities Aeroflot cooperates with. Also, Russian companies' climate obligations can be used in the areas of energy, transport, infrastructure, and large corporations invest money in education, including in support of students from specialized fields. An example is a partnership of the company Rostech corporation with aviation universities within the country. So I would be happy to continue with particular examples, but I don't want to take much of your time. We have also issued our and presented our first voluntary national review of SDGs last year, and it also contains a lot of examples. I would like to thank UNDP and Russian Forum for organizing this event, and we would like this event to be a success and to be a good stimulus to continue this important discussion. It is quite joined with the discussion of business investment in SDGs, but as we see, the philanthropy work is something still special. And I thank you again for this topic. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your remarks and reminding us that there is a tradition of giving and philanthropy in Russia, as in other countries of the world, that is not new, but needs to be and can be stimulated to contribute now to the achievement of the SDGs. So that makes a good transition to the panel that we're now going to start. First of all, as a matter of a quick introduction, I'd like to share with you something interesting is that with the COVID-19 crisis, we have seen globally a surge in private donations to respond to the crisis from corporations, from foundations and individuals. And it's really interesting to note that the biggest private donor countries after the US to respond to this crisis, according to the numbers we've found in the networks, including some on this panel have worked together some of these numbers, were China, India, and Brazil. So after the US, and so that gives us a good indication that something is shifting into the philanthropy world, and in terms of maybe a more prominent role to be played in the future by BRICS philanthropies. And so beyond volumes and growth of giving, which of course goes together with economic development, we've seen interesting innovations. And for example, Jack Ma leveraging the Alibaba platform to deliver aid, or also tech innovation has been leveraged to boost giving in places like Brazil with a number of local innovations around online giving. And we also see new funding models such as blended finance that are tested and getting traction, especially in Asia. And so but the surge and dynamism of philanthropy is happening against the backdrop of a concerning trend of restrictions on international giving. So that must be reversed, but at the same time, it urges us to think about ways to boost the volume and effectiveness of domestic philanthropic capital for the SDGs. There's another point I'd like to mention as I share a few initial thoughts, that most of the philanthropic models, narratives, and norms are still predominantly from the US today, and to a lesser extent from Europe. While we know that there are different local realities, cultures of giving, and relationship between the private sector and the state, depending on the regions and countries. So here there might be two pitfalls to avoid. On the one hand, the risk to reinvent the wheel for emerging philanthropies and to miss the opportunity to leapfrog to more impactful approaches, but also on the other hand, to the risk to copy paste, outside models that are not adapted to local reality. So in this framework, the question of how can we create more exchanges between BRICS philanthropies, but also with the rest of the world, is something that is particularly relevant. And such exchanges can maybe even foster beyond learning between these actors. It can also maybe help create new centers of innovation and thought leadership for global philanthropy. And for instance, BRICS philanthropy seems to have a lot to share with the world in terms of leveraging, in terms of partnership with government, or in terms of creating ownership of development process at the community level. And we also see interesting efforts by domestic foundations in the BRICS countries to build their own infrastructure and their own ecosystem to have more collective impact. For instance, the interesting work developed by the Vladimir Potanin Foundation in Russia. So, of course, we need to, today, I hope we can also discuss, how much BRICS actors are willing and ready to start playing more of a leadership role and look beyond their borders to share and learn, and maybe as a mirror to the diplomatic vision of the BRICS institution to build an alternative global emerging leadership in philanthropy. So at Wings, as a global network of 190 philanthropy support organizations around the world, we are headquartered in Brazil, and we really believe that's possible and that's actually needed. And the daunting challenges that we're facing right now, including the climate emergency, really calls for such new developments. And we believe that you all in the BRICS countries can play a critical role. So I'm very excited today to have such an amazing lineup of speakers to discuss this and more, to help us understand how to unlock catalytic philanthropy in the BRICS and globally by working in collaborative partnerships for the SDGs. So first of all, my first question will go to Natalia Goncha, who is a board member of the Russian Donors Forum and head of corporate affairs at Sakhalin Energy. And my question would be that you've just published a brand new research on philanthropy and social investments in BRICS countries, which demonstrates the crucial role that BRICS philanthropies have in working towards the achievement of the SDGs. So could you share with us the key findings of the new report, and also tell us a little bit what you think other countries and the SDG philanthropy platform could learn from these BRICS experiences?
Yes, thank you very much, Benjamin. Hello, colleagues. Hello from the island of Sakhalin. It's really a great honor to share the findings of the report, Philanthropy and Social Investments in BRICS countries before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. As a representative of both Russian Donors Forum and a private company, I will talk from business perspective, both regarding SDGs with a focus, of course, on lessons learned from the pandemic, on where we are now and what priorities and opportunities we see. As we all know, 2020 has become a landmark year for the global philanthropy, and the pandemic has forced us to reconsider charitable approaches and the funds distribution. But actually, all the discussions and different studies of recent years have observed that 5 years after SDGs entering into force, corporate commitments to them have been included into the agenda of many companies. And this fully applies to the Russian business as well. We're united by an already established systematic approach to sustainable development, the existence of appropriate policies and programs on environmental and social responsibility that are based both on national legislation and international standards and trends. And of course, Russian companies actively participated in already mentioned voluntary national review preparation. Sakhalin Energy that I'm working for is one of them, and we committed towards SDGs back in 2016 via the Corporate Sustainable Development Policy, and since then we are progressively working in this direction. For instance, our key program to contribute to sustainable development of such vulnerable groups as indigenous people is a series of Sakhalin indigenous minorities development plans. We are implementing them since 2006, but now we are preparing the next 5-year plan. And one of the tasks was actually to strengthen the program in relation to the SDGs and, of course, to respond to the challenges of the pandemic. Just to share the key lessons learned, first of all, partnership and collaboration is a key factor of success, and it should be based on transparency and wide public consultations. In relation to indigenous peoples, as you know, this is a free, prior, and informed consent principle, and we together with our partners follow it since 2012. Second, capacity building for all the parties involved, and especially for community. And two next lessons learned directly relate to pandemic challenges. This is digitalization. Digitalization as much as possible, and at the same time, partners should ensure accessibility, clarity, and training. And another one, it's intention to indigenous traditional knowledge and identity that can contribute to the planet and people's sustainability in general. And finally, about the findings of the report, Philanthropy and Social Investments in BRICS countries that was already mentioned. This is a research effort initiated by Russian Donors Forum in partnership with the Worldwide Initiative for Grant-Making Support, chief executives for corporate purpose, and a network of philanthropy and social investment support organizations in Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The research demonstrated that in recent years, BRICS philanthropists and responsible businesses have increased their level of awareness and started playing a more and more prominent role at national level. But at the same time, the level of maturity in integrating the SDGs varies among different stakeholders across BRICS countries. And the study revealed the following factors which contribute to this. First of all, this is commitment of the government, and this is a strong prerequisite for national stakeholders to engage in global goals. For example, in Russia, Special Council at federal level, Special Council on Sustainable Development was set up to facilitate business involvement in SDGs. Second factor is the present at the level of involvement of international development institutions and funders. And the national characteristics of the philanthropy sector also matters, of course. Nonetheless, the cross-country analysis of the role of philanthropy and social investments in BRIC countries in implementing SDGs revealed a number of similar features. For example, the general tendency towards great involvement of BRICS philanthropy and social investments in embracing the Agenda 2030. And the private sector leads the way in embracing the SDGs in our countries. On the other hand, research identified the challenges to move on and progress. The key two ones are related to transparency of BRICS foundations and individual progress tracking. To sum it up, the study shows a lot in common between the BRICS countries' philanthropy, but also the need for mutual platforms and bridges such as SDG Philanthropy Platform to both exchanging experience and joining BRICS projects. This was it from me, dear colleagues. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Natalia, for these insights from the report, and we all look forward to reading it. So now my next question goes to May-Ann Tran, who is the Chief Financial Officer at the Ford Foundation. And so May-Ann, the Ford Foundation has been at the vanguard of utilizing new forms of philanthropy and development finance, particularly through the sale of social bonds last year. So why and how did you do this? And how can we continue to transform and unlock catalytic philanthropy in this and in other new ways?
Thanks, Benjamin. Hello, everyone, and it's an honor to be part of this panel. Thank you for inviting us. I think, as you know, or as many of you know, just by virtue of our work, we align very succinctly with the SDGs, especially since our North Star and what guides all of our work is to reduce inequality throughout the world and the drivers of inequality. And so, absolutely, we've always been on the vanguard of philanthropy. I think we are a $17 billion endowment, and we're a grant-making organization primarily. But through our work and our history, we've always launched new tools and to advance the field, which is really part of our strategy as well. And so, last year, or it seems like a lifetime ago, actually. We knew things were bad. We have an office in China, so we knew straight away that something bad was brewing. I think what happened is as soon as everyone went to lockdown around the world, our partners, which are our grantees through which we do our work, saw their funding being pulled back. And so we knew right away that the financial markets were in turmoil, and we knew that giving was going to dry up for the next. We didn't know at that time. We didn't know for how long. And so we saw ourselves, as trying to save the sector to make sure that our grantees would survive this pandemic, however long this pandemic would be. At the time, no one knew, right? No one knew. So with the financial markets in turmoil, our endowment, took a dip. However, the credit markets were very accessible. Interest rates were very low. And issuers were issuing debt, and the bond buyers were clamoring for good quality, debt instrument. And so it was this perfect confluence of events that allowed us to be really creative and use our balance sheet and issue a long-term bond with the strategy that this would be a resiliency strategy, a once in a century. We used to call it a generation, but it's a once in a century event where we could really, issue a very long-term bond so that it wouldn't really impact us financially significantly, and that we would be able to, put money with our grantees that they could use as reserves, and just to survive the pandemic, and have something on their balance sheet to just make sure that they were able to make payroll and rent and advance their work when situations would change and when they could. And so we saw this opportunity to be creative. We also saw an opportunity to issue a social bond, which is the first of its kind by a private foundation in the US. And we thought it was a perfect way to advance the field of ESG investing. So a lot of ESG investors have been clamoring for high quality debt. We're high quality organizations. And so we were able to be the first to issue a social bond. And of course, Ford Foundation being the Ford Foundation, we also worked with other foundations to do the same. And so we were the first to issue it. And then subsequently, many others issued similar debts, some of our peers as well. And so even though we issued $1 billion, our other organizations joined us and issued an additional, I think, $2 billion in total. And I think some are still considering it. And so, we thought it was a creative way to use our balance sheet to have the impact that we needed at the time, advance the SDGs. We aligned ourselves with reducing inequality, reducing poverty, and promoting good jobs. Those were the three that came to mind. But, I think as you see our work, we align on other SDGs as well. But this is what we committed to for our bond buyers. And so it was just, the proceeds of the bonds were nearly $1 billion. I think by the end of the year, we will have granted all of those funds. So within less than 2 years, we've been able to really deploy those funds, and place them with the grantees. So we pay interest rates on this bond, but our grantees have funds to survive this pandemic and hopefully thrive and make this world better. Thanks, Benjamin.
Thank you so much. That's very very impressive, and I think that's a great example on how we can start mobilizing the $1.5 trillion in assets that foundations hold globally, and not only the 150 billion that they are distributing every year with their grants. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much. So now let's turn a little bit to China, and I'll invite the founder of Yishan, Tao Zhe. The Yishan is the Philanthropy Data Center, to tell us a little bit about drawing on the experiences from the Philanthropy Data Center, to explain us the importance of financial and indicator data in achieving the SDGs. And how can we collaborate with other actors in this field in measuring impact? And what are the most important activities that we need to undertake now?
Thank you, Benjamin. Last year, Chinese corporation, foundation, and individual donated over $20 billion to solve the social problems. Philanthropy is becoming a very important power to work together with the government and corporation to achieve the SDG. My organization collected donation information and classified them with various taxonomy, including the SDG. Based on our experiences, transparency is very important. And one of the important data is the grants information. The grant information has 6 important indicators, including the grantor, grant maker name, grantee name, grant year, grant size, grant introduction, and the related goal of 17 SDGs. Now, we find there are about 2 main challenges. The first challenge is the quality of the raw data. When we review our grants data in our database, we find some grants information lack of grant name, grant maker, grantee name, some lack of the grant size or the introduction, or some grant information doesn't show the grant year, or so some multiple year. It's not good for the. It's hard to make accurate classification based on this kind of bad quality of the raw data. The second challenge is the how to classify efficiently of the data. Our IT engineer automatically collect thousands of grant information every year. It's very hard and expensive to classify them by human beings every day. It needs the artificial intelligence help, but we do not have enough the high quality training data set to train the machine. So we also lack of talented the data scientist or engineer to manage the data efficiently as a kind of a startup or NGO. So based on these kind of challenges, we do have some like a suggestion, maybe 2 suggestions for the stakeholder or other actors to help us to solve this problem. The first suggestion is for the government and some membership association. We hope they could highlight the transparency, the importance of the transparency of philanthropy, and design the information disclosure standards in order to improve the quality of the raw data. The other suggestion is for the internet company or the IT company. They have good engineer and they have the good data scientist. We suggest that they can also provide some pro bono service to the philanthropy data center to help the center use the best technology to manage the data and analyze the data. That will be very helpful for the data center like us. Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you so much, Tao Tse. And I think you're doing just a very, very important job looking at the data, because if we don't have the data, we don't know what is the contribution philanthropy is making to the SDGs. And we can also not make the case for enabling policy environment for philanthropy to achieve more. So thanks for that. And keep sharing your data from China with the rest of the world. So now I'm going to invite José Marcelo Zaki, the Secretary General of GIFE, the Association of Foundations in Brazil. My question to José Marcelo would be that the business case for the alignment with the SDGs has been well established in BRICS countries in the context where corporate social investments and private philanthropy tend to come together as one sector. And it has facilitated the integration of the SDGs into philanthropy. So how did GIFE help facilitate this process? And what can non-BRICS countries do to achieve this powerful integration as well?
So, Benjamin, well, thank you, first of all, for the invitation, you and Mings. It's a pleasure to be here joining this conversation with all the colleagues and UNDP as well. Briefly, Benjamin, I think we have a good departing point at GIFE, since it brings together both corporate, family, independent organizations, so to promote a shared ecosystem for private philanthropy and corporate social investment. So this sense that all these actors come together to compose a single sector, and as such to set up a single strategy to foster the collective impact of philanthropy is, I would say, well entrenched in GIFE's framework and in the Brazilian philanthropic context. But more than this, I think we have been, throughout GIFE's 26 years history, so even before the SDGs, before the Millennium Development Goals and other shared frameworks to foster the promotion of a more democratic, fair, equal, diverse, sustainable world and society, has been part of our basic vision since the very beginning. And I think in the beginning and in the end of the day, since we're here sharing a conversation with people that are at this moment in both beginning, middle, and end of days, it's about promoting these values and these shared goals. And so to embrace the SDGs as the better and most comprehensive shared framework to guide our actions in this direction, I think is also crucial to be able to promote a more collaborative environment, not only regarding philanthropic actors, but also the interconnections with other actors. We have been working very closely with the global compact in Brazil and UNDP in bringing the corporate sector into the agenda, and at the same time joining and collaborating with a network of more than 400 civil society organizations called the SDG strategy in Brazil, which promotes the engagement of civil society as a whole. So, and trying to play this role of getting these different corporate and societal actors together in the agenda, and also joining the SDG Philanthropy platform in its initial activities in Brazil in the previous years. So again, trying to set up this bridge. One last thing that I would like to remark, because this is about fostering collaboration, have been also working very deeply in promote what we call collaborative philanthropy. So ways to manage the philanthropic action of mobilize resources and manage and allocate them collectively. So promote this strategy, and at the same time promote the expansion of the philanthropic agenda in the country. So we have a lot of thematic groups fostering collaboration in issues and themes that we are very much into as a sector. So education, health, culture, and so on. And in the previous year, have been fostering the promotion, we call it private social investment for agenda. So doing processing, highlighting opportunities to embrace new issues and deepen our actions in agenda as such, racial equality, gender and women rights, climate change, sustainable and fair cities, and public safety and criminal justice. So a lot of different issues, but that together would comprise this broad SDG-inspired vision to our challenge and roles as a sector to foster, again, a more democratic, fair, and sustainable world and society. So this has been part of our agenda, and I think this also key roles for ecosystem, philanthropic ecosystems organizations to develop in our shared context. And I would just like to finish congratulating Wings for this event, not only for the opportunities to exchange on strategies for our specific role, but also taking into consideration the challenge for maintaining this shared vision for a democracy, diversity, and sustainability in the world that we're living together. We are very much dealing with very short-term challenge, so the pandemics, but not only it, so all the democratic entropy around the world, extreme weather events already caused by climate change. So be able to reinforce and reassert the sense of working together against a trend of fragmentation and polarization in societies. The sense of these shared values and this long-term perspective is, I would say, more than ever quite valuable. So I would finish with this, building upon our challenge as a sector, but also our contribution for our shared challenge as a society, as a global society, at the end of the day. Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you so much, Marcelo, for the powerful reminder on the urgency to collaborate and to exchange in order to face the big daunting challenges. Let's now talk to Vidya Shah, who is a philanthropist, the executive chairperson of the LLD Foundation, and also actually a board member of Wings. And Vidya, we would like to ask you to tell us about the level of interest and of awareness around the SDGs in India at the local level compared to the national level. And so what can be the lessons learned and how do you think we can unlock more philanthropic capital to achieve the SDGs in India?
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Pleasure to be here. I think in your opening remarks, you alluded to the fact that there's been incredible support from philanthropic communities in the midst of COVID. And I think you mentioned India being among them. And I think one of the things we saw in 2020, a national report shows that close to $9.5 billion actually came into philanthropy last year as philanthropic contributions to a number of causes. But interestingly, nearly 60% of that actually came from private philanthropy. And I think there are two interesting trends that I'm seeing in India that is really pushing the needle, in terms of looking at philanthropy through the SDG lens. About 7 or 8 years ago, we had, a mandatory CSR provision come into being. So all Indian companies above a certain net profits threshold have to contribute about 2% of their net profits to CSR. But I think one of the things that perhaps the SDGs did is to, look to make CSR become, shift from being highly employee oriented, welfare oriented, local oriented, to actually looking at development issues and the main causes of inequity in the country, and really pushing that conversation and looking at the SDGs as a kind of a North Star, a beacon through which they could, channelize their philanthropy. The second important trend has really been the importance of ESG reporting. And because Indian companies, receive a lot of funding, either through large institutions, pension funds, insurance companies, globally, the shift in conversation, particularly in the investor community towards ESG norms, has actually made a lot of the large companies in India repurpose the way they do things around ES and G to global, standards. And in doing that, especially the E and the S part has been sort of driven by how, the UN SDGs define some of the focus areas that countries like India must look at. And that's why you can see how, there's increasing attention to, for example, gender equality. There is increasing attention to climate action. And therefore, I think these two trends have been quite significant. So if you see even the interim findings of the report that you're just referring to today in the panel, we are speaking about the importance of government. We are speaking about the importance of international organizations in pushing the cause of SDGs. But I thought that the comment about private philanthropy has been very, very interesting, because especially, and the report mentions that where foundations operate as hybrid organizations with the features of both private and corporate foundations, which a lot of us in India, for example, we may be a corporate foundation, but we operate pretty much like a private foundation. And there, the move to embracing SDGs is a lot more marked, because there is a sort of a business approach to philanthropy, and therefore marrying the cause of philanthropy with the SDGs has become a lot more purposeful, a lot more focused.
Thank you so much, Vidya, for these insights, and very, very important to see that the sector, including corporate sector, is shifting towards alignment with the SDGs, especially in a country that, if I'm not mistaken, represents half of the whole worldwide SDGs, just in India, if I'm not wrong. So that's particularly crucial. So the last speaker and question is for Gil Bates, the CEO of the Charities Aid Foundation in South Africa. So Gil, for with the impact of COVID-19, the SDG framework is perhaps more important now than ever. So how can donors and implementing organizations that are still grappling with the social economic impact of the pandemic on their grant making, investing and programming, leverage the SDGs to reimagine approaches to philanthropy and ensure multi-stakeholder collaboration?
Thank you so much, Benjamin, for that question, and a very good day, colleagues. And thank you so much for this opportunity to share some of our perspectives from CAF and CAF Southern Africa. Just allow me just a bit of context for my colleagues. The African continent, as many of you know, has a strong culture of giving, both historically and currently, the continent's serious socioeconomic challenges notwithstanding. This speaks to our generation-old practice of Ubuntu, which essentially is a term meaning humanity. In other words, humanity towards each other. So the CAF Growing Giving series, which we produce every year, particularly in 2019 and 2020, found that middle-class givers in South Africa were giving at least 25% of their income, their monthly income, to those in need. So South Africa went into a very hard lockdown in March 2020, and this quickly exposed the existing fault lines of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, an inheritance from the repressive system of apartheid that the country suffered under. The COVID-19 pandemic hit hard, and the economic crisis continues in South Africa. Yesterday, Stats SA announced our latest unemployment stats, and we are at a staggering 34% of South Africans unemployed. And the vast amount of people in this category are our young people, or people between the ages of 16 and 34. So government immediately announced a number of financial relief packages, including social welfare grants. The basic income grant is now being paid out to 12 million impoverished South Africans. And the government established the Solidarity Fund. And the purpose of that fund was to mobilize and to coordinate financial and in-kind contributions from South Africans and members of the international community. These contributions are being distributed in order to manage the health crisis and the social and humanitarian consequences of the pandemic. Corporate South Africa, likewise, has responded quickly and displayed a willingness for current grants to be repurposed. And we also saw a relaxing of the historically very taxing reporting requirements. And in fact, in 2020, Corporate South Africa donated some 10.7 billion rand into the nonprofit sector. We've also seen that family trusts and foundations and high net worth individuals have also stepped in to assist. In fact, very early on in the hard lockdown, CAFSA was approached by a prominent South African family and tasked CAFSA to distribute 5 million rand among South African NPOs who are rendering services at grassroots level in terms of delivering foodstuffs. Now, talking about challenges, the challenges that we found then, that was that although the nonprofits were rendering great services to those most in need, their governance structures were either weak or non-existent. And this really excluded them in respect of being visible and eligible for funding from local and foreign donors. So CAPSA introduced its Validate for Good portal, which is a safe, user-friendly and easy way for those nonprofit organizations to get their documents uploaded so that they can be visible to donors. And colleagues, I think if we were to be looking at some recommendations, we would say that obviously there's a critical need for investment in the philanthropy ecosystem and local structures that are necessary for civil society to thrive. Big philanthropy needs to help unlock mass giving through relevant platforms and organizations. Secondly, we would say we must give philanthropy and civil society a seat at the table, and not just during the COVID-19 pandemic, but also in terms of the rebuilding efforts, and recognize them as a key pillar for stable, inclusive development. And finally, colleagues, a better enabling environment. In other words, one that is easy for charities to access funding, to be compliant, is critically needed in our ecosystem and in our partnership. So thank you for the opportunity to share those brief insights, Benjamin. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Gil. And so, I mean, that was such an amazing series of thoughts and perspectives that it would be, of course, impossible to summarize. And we want to keep time also for Thomas Bello from the UNDP to make some closing remarks. But just maybe in a few seconds, I think that some of the highlights of the discussions are really around the need first to mobilize all the assets that we have and all the tools that we have, which are not just, maybe some of the traditional tools we were using in the 20th century. And so we need to think out of the box. The other highlight for me is really this urgency to collaborate, both within philanthropy, and so to create the platforms for that, but also between philanthropy and other actors, both within countries, but also between countries in the BRICS, but also globally. So that was, I think that came out very strongly. And then there was also this, maybe this, the common point, the common thread with all of this is the need for a strong infrastructure, a strong ecosystem that can support the development of philanthropy, create these connections, create those platforms that will allow to catalyze funding. And that's very critical, and that's very underfunded globally. So there's here a real opportunity in the BRICS, but also between countries to strengthen that infrastructure that will catalyze more funding, better policy environment, and so on. And finally, also, I think the reminder about the need for a shared vision and, really the values that drive philanthropy, the love of humanity, around agency, democracy, sustainability, which are very much needed to achieve the SDGs. So thank you so much to all our speakers for your excellent insights. And I will, with no further delay, ask Thomas Bello, Chief of the Program Coordination at the Finance Sector Hub of the UNDP, to make the closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Benjamin, and thanks also to this amazing panel. I've learned a huge amount through participation today in the session. We've really crisscrossed the world. It's been an extraordinary opportunity to learn from so many different experiences, and really I take away the feeling that there is huge momentum within the Philanthropic Center behind the Sustainable Development Goals, and that presents a number of significant assets for our collective effort to achieve the SDGs in partnership across sectors, with the Philanthropic Center very much there at the heart of our efforts. I think we've heard a lot about the self-reflection of the Philanthropic Center, what makes it effective in delivering on the SDGs. We've heard both from the study itself, from the Russian study. We've heard from the Philanthropic Data Center on the importance of data and ensuring we measure our impact and improve our impact. And we've heard about the importance of collaboration across the sector. I think our colleague from Brazil and also from South Africa spoke to the ecosystem and the importance of joining up the dots within the sector, but also ensuring that the sector is at the table when we're discussing the recovery and how we can build back better. And of course, I think it was really reassuring to hear again about the increasing momentum behind the SDGs from our colleague in India, and of the innovation within the center. I mean, to hear about the debt instruments being issued there from the Ford Foundation and across other elements of the center, hugely inspiring in respect to how we mobilize and align finance, even in a tightly constrained pandemic context. So, wow, what a panel. And I think it really shows the huge wealth of the Philanthropic Center, not just its money potential, and I know that's huge. I mean, as I understand, the full potential of the philanthropic SDG finance is something around $650 billion. So it's a huge financial contribution, but obviously it's also the skills and expertise and the social movement behind philanthropy that's important. Also, really happy and excited from UNDP to be here today in launching with our wings, with you, Benjamin, the SDG Philanthropy Platform 2.0. Our commitment is to work with all of you to test the cutting edge new approaches to philanthropy that you've been talking about and unlocking the full potential of philanthropy within our broader collaborations toward the SDGs. The philanthropy platform is an enabler, a facilitator, which we hope will continue to grow the sector and broaden the approaches to philanthropy. But we need you to help us to realize some of the sector-wide goals that we share. You can do this by joining the SDG philanthropy platform as a donor, a partner, or a sponsor. You can join your local philanthropy support organization, just like the Russian Donors Forum. And you can apply to our SDG Ambassador program when it launches. So I encourage everyone to continue to engage with our team at SDG Philanthropy Platform. And with that, I'd also like to close by thanking all of you again for sharing your expertise, your experience, your insights, particularly great thanks to Benjamin and Wings, as well as to the Russian Donors Forum for bringing us all together on this very unique and special occasion. And we look forward to a continued collaboration with all of you. So great thanks to all of you. And really, I have fed off the enthusiasm of you today in this panel and look forward to working with all of you as we continue this journey together. So thank you very much. With that, am I closing the meeting? Is that what I should be doing?
I think you are, but I'll use the opportunity to also thank the UNDP and thank you for the great closing remarks. But I think we're all set. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Benjamin. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Benjamin. Lauren.
Thank you, Midiana,
you.
and thank you, UNDP, and thank to my compatriots. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.